stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Dlaczego mogę siedzieć w ciepłym pomieszczeniu, na wygodnym fotelu, obżerać się tłustymi chipsami i enjoyować ten pokazuję i objaśniam piękny widok. Tak nie wygląda wielki ucisk. Tak w ogóle ucisk nie wygląda. Ok? Tak w ogóle ucisk nie wygląda. Tak w ogóle ucisk nie wygląda.
All right, folks, what's happening out there is happening very quickly. We are seeing some serious events take place. Russia, in an attempt to prevent leaks from the government, they're starting to lock down all government officials, not letting them leave the country without basically presidential authority. There has been an order signed by the Russian President, Vladimir Putin. It prohibits all former and active government officials from being able to travel outside of the country without the expressed permission of the Kremlin. You're going to see this type of event during a world war or a global conflict, and this is one more series of ideas or inclinations that we are moving that much, creeping that much closer to Russia, maybe going beyond Ukraine, starting to go into another country. Only a special commission inside of Russia can authorize any sort of travel. They already told the Western officials that the USA and NATO are the ones right now provoking nuclear war. Now they hint at ending the world in national broadcasts. Now we have actors, anchors, and meteorologists saying that conditions are ideal for nuclear strikes on member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They're out there on public television, national television, every single day saying, you know what? I think the clouds are right today to nuke Europe. I think the clouds are right today to let one off in San Francisco. You'll find a lot of people in the USA who say that wouldn't be a bad thing. Meanwhile, in Russia, the weatherman, his name is Tishkovets. He told different news anchors that conditions are ideal for a nuclear strike against NATO countries, and he says you will never see a weather report like this anywhere else. Most importantly, you should see how clearly, he says, how our missiles can strike precisely on NATO targets. Weather will not get in the way. Despite the challenging meteorological conditions, the missiles will reach their targets and Paris will be on fire. Today, they say the weather is ideal for nuclear strikes. The air currents are directed in non-traditional ways, not from the west to the east, but the east to the west. Radioactive clouds from these strikes will travel toward other countries that send arms and mercenaries to fight the motherland. So this is a bit of social conditioning. When you get the populace, the people ready to endure or at least accept some sort of nuclear event, then you see it happening. NATO is preparing for Russian threats in the harsh Arctic region. They are saying that if you want to keep peace, you must prepare for war. I'm sure you know that saying. We saw a 19-year-old corporal tell news reporting agencies while he's clutching his automatic rifle that this is what we are doing. We are preparing for war with Russia. Now, you know what's going on right now is Steadfast Defender. It's an exercise that's going to last maybe 4, maybe even 6, 8 months. It might be put into perpetuity. This is the largest drill by the U.S.-led military alliance since the Cold War. In a quote, they say, "We are signaling that we are ready to defend our territories," all of NATO, and that it's very important to strengthen our capabilities to operate together. That's the Swedish defense minister. He's watching tanks from Sweden engage in battles on the Norwegian and Finnish border against a Russian enemy. Right now, the Russian ground forces are bogged down in Ukraine, he warns, but Russia has stated their high ambitions. They will reconstitute themselves and they will adapt a new force posture. Russia is turning the tide and outgunning Ukrainian troops, according to all of the reports that we're seeing. Now, you're not going to get this on CNN. You're not going to get this on Fox News, maybe even some other outlets. Russia is turning the tide right now. They are proving that the people of Russia are better prepared to engage in a long-duration conflict than NATO and Western allies. Because after all, if you have everybody in the USA worried about certain things with their social ideologies, maybe certain things that are agendized in national media, they're not going to have the balls, so to say. They're not going to have the gall to be able to fight a long-duration war. They're wimps. They're going to PUS out. They're going to just be able to walk away from it. They're going to cry, and they're going to worry about their little hair flaps. They're going to basically emo their way out of a long-duration war. In Russia, no such case, because if you're not manly enough, or if you're not big enough, strong enough, don't have enough endurance, you are socially depicted as a lesser. That's the caste system there. You're either strong or you're weak. There is no middle ground, and there is no strength in weakness like they try to say in the USA, where, well, let's not get into that too much. But Russia, they say, is turning the tide. They are starting to outgun Ukrainian troops, while forces of the Kremlin are depleted on the maritime side instead, on the air side, and of course on the nuclear side of things. They have kept their forces intact. That's according to a commander there. You have this uncertainty about how long Russia will continue, and then how long it will take them to do something bigger. The Arctic is becoming a strategic area, according to Finland's defense minister. We are investing a lot here, and China is watching this area. Where else are you hearing this right now? Now, Russia, early on in this war, said, you know what? I think we want Alaska back. Now, it was pretty publicly accepted inside of Russia that they want to take Alaska back. Now we're having concerns over fighting in Arctic regions. Let's face it, the people of America are not prepared to fight on Russian soil. Digging ditches, having your feet frozen off because of the muddy slough of frozen nasty in the water, we're just not prepared for it. And so they're trying to prep us for it. That's why Russia is investing here. China is watching the area. The Arctic is the new war focus, and we must invest our capabilities to act militarily here, and it must become an intelligent fight. They're adding that you have to know how to work in the Arctic. It's a very big shock to come into these conditions. We rarely see snow like this. They are deployed into climates such as North Carolina, South Carolina. The biggest challenge there is the mental aspect, just being prepared. But if Putin decides to get ballsy, they say, and go off and do worse things than he's doing right now, speaking of the Marine Sergeant Joshua Perishko, he says, I will be back out here fixing these, he's talking about the HIMARS, for us, for other countries, helping out. The mission comes first. Now let's move forward to how there is a war going on against you in the U.S. economy. Rand Paul, he recently exposed a top 10 waste of your tax dollars. I want to break this down for you so you can kind of understand how corrupt this whole system is. $1 million to a nonprofit in Minnesota to build a coffee shop just for refugees. $500,000 for gardens in San Francisco. $1.2 million as an earmark for bike paths. $4 million for a waterfront walkway. $2 million for environmental justice centers. $4 million for a Thanksgiving parade float maker to have a new headquarters. $500,000 for cybercrime vehicles. Thousands and thousands of dollars for things like air conditioners that cost around $200. Now, this is not just one single event. No, this is happening over and over and over again. Just yesterday, they came out and said, hurry, Ukraine needs a whole bunch of more money. They need $500 million. They need $800 million. It's an emergency. And they didn't even bat an eye at it. What's happening is that money was just written and then given to somebody, and it's going to go right back into the pocketbooks of whoever wrote that check. A lot of people don't understand that. They don't want to realize that we do live in a time of corruption that's worse than what is depicted in media of other countries. We are starting to see lots of price cuts. Oh, I do want to get to this, okay? We only have a couple of days left. Israel, the country, set a deadline of March 15th to launch a new war against Lebanon. They threatened to push the enemies of Israel away from the border. Diplomatic efforts are failing. They have informed their Western sponsors and their Western military officials that if this deadline of time is not met, then Israel will be forced to act on their own. Now, we just saw a whole bunch of money and weapons moved over to Israel, and we just saw even the current president of the United States of America speak out against that and say, well, we're going to have to send our troops there if Israel goes through with this. So you see the USA being dragged into these wars either through NATO or through Israel or through Taiwan, and what we are doing is being pulled apart. Each limb of the body is being torn asunder by a horse carrying the chain attached to each limb, and you might be okay if just one arm gets cut off. You might be okay if two arms get cut off. We've seen people learn how to cook with their feet, feed themselves with their feet. You can shoot a weapon with your feet. But if every limb gets cut off, you're done. And that's the goal. That's the plan of Russia. That's the plan of China, of Iran, of North Korea, of all these enemies that we have allowed to fester and work together. You see, it used to be how the USA was the big dog on the block. No one could mess with the USA. You'd get pinned down. Your teeth of the USA would be right over your neck within hours. Now they shoot missiles at us and we say, don't do it again or else. We point the big fingers. We don't even point the right finger anymore. It's done. And now we have to suffer the recourse. Moving back to what we were talking about before, we are seeing lots of price cuts in the U.S. housing market, most notably across the southern United States, including Florida. 7 of the 10 largest price cuts there, a high share of them, are indicators of broader declines in the market. Now, we did see JP Morgan, we did see a whole bunch of other economists come out and say, that's the bubble that's coming, the AI bubble's coming, the retail bubble is coming. There's nowhere else to turn to when they stop making enough money and they turn against us. So guys, we have to work together, fight together, live together, love together. We have to do these things. You have to rebuild those bridges, maybe that have been torn down by politics or forceful divides. Talk to people. Make new groups. Accept people into your group. There are things we can do to be better prepared, and that starts with being more self-reliant. Look at your situation and say, what can I do today to be more self-reliant? Kelly and I just last night, I want to make a video about this soon. We were talking about how to get our chickens to lay more eggs, lay eggs further into the colder season. Just be as independent as you can. And that's how we fight. Thank you guys for being here with us. From my family to yours, please stay safe and keep watch.